In the opening shots, we see a boy named Mack who lives in the countryside. His father was an elder in the church and a drunkard. He made his family's life unbearable. Only a kind neighbor took care of the boy and gave him cookies. When she saw his bruises, she said good fathers don't treat their children that way. The neighbor advised the boy to turn to God. After these words on Sunday, when the family attended Sunday service, Mack told the priest the truth about his father. At home, Mack was chastised. His father is convinced that according to the Bible, children should be obedient to their parents. The next day, 13-year-old Mack put strychnine in his father's bottles instead of alcohol. Events then take us many years into the future. Mack kisses a happy husband and father. He has a beloved wife Nan, daughters Kate and Missy, and son Josh. The family came to church for Sunday service. Nan is a very religious woman. She calls God Papa. One day the family's perfect life was shattered. Some time ago, their youngest daughter Missy passed away. Nan and the children were unable to return home today because of a heavy snowstorm, so Mack was left alone. Willie, a family friend, supports Mack, who tries not to show his grief. That same day he found a letter in the mailbox. The addressee was someone named Papa, who invited Mack to meet him at the shack on the weekend. Suddenly Mack slipped, fell and lost consciousness. His memories returned to the very day he and his children were going on a picnic. Nan could not go with them because she had a seminar. Soon the family arrived at the lake. Mack met a man named Emil, who also came here with his children. In the evening they all sat together around the campfire. Vicky, Emil's wife, was surprised that Missy called God Papa. At night the family camped out to spend the night in nature. The very next morning they were going home. Suddenly Josh and Kate tipped from the boat into the lake. Mack didn't hesitate to rush into the water to save the children. Kate swam out unharmed, but Josh swallowed a lot of water. All the people on the shore were very frightened. Luckily, Josh woke up. At some point Mack realized Missy was nowhere to be found. Emil's children were also missing, and the men started looking for them.
Missy?
Emil's daughters were found quickly, but no one saw Missy. Mack immediately called the police. A ladybug pin was found on the table where the girl was drawing. It certainly didn't belong to Missy. The officer honestly told Mack that the FBI had been looking for several years for a dangerous criminal who was hiding somewhere in these parts and might be involved in Missy's disappearance. The FBI assures they are doing everything they can to get Missy back. Mack feels guilty, but Nan reassures him. The main thing now is for them to stick together. Soon the officer reported that the perpetrator's van had been found in the mountains. Mack and the police went there by helicopter. Missy's dress was found in a shack nearby. Mack cried and screamed. In the present, he woke up in the snow. Later he visited Willie and showed him the letter. Only Nan and Missy called God Papa. Also the addressee clearly knew about the shack. There are no footprints in the snow, nor any other clues. Willie advises to go to the police, but Mack doesn't want to do that. All evening he thinks about the letter. Nan and the children return the next morning. Everyone is very depressed about the tragedy, especially Kate, who still can't get over what happened. Nan wants to go next weekend with the children to visit her brother, who has found them a good psychologist. Mack went to the post office, but they couldn't help. The letter was not even stamped. Sitting in the car, Mack recalls the day of the funeral. Later, he meets Willie and asks to borrow his Jeep. He intends to return to the shack, hoping to find solace. Willie fears that the letter was written by the criminal who has not yet been caught. However, Mack senses that it is something else. Willie agrees to lend the Jeep on one condition: he goes with him. For the weekend, the wife and children were going to her brother's. Nan told her husband that she loved him very much. Mack and Willie got ready to go too, taking everything they needed. Mack asked his friend to go get some fishing rods, and he took the Jeep and drove off. He feels he must go this way alone. When Mack arrived in the woods, he had the gun ready just in case. Finally, he ventured into the shack where the worst nightmare of his life had recently unfolded. He doesn't understand why God allowed this to happen, and in a rage he begins to throw things around. In addition, Mack continues to feel unbearable guilt for not keeping Missy safe. He tore into the letter, not understanding who had brought him here and why. As Mack was about to leave, he noticed someone approaching. He pointed his gun at the stranger, but he only friendly invited him to come with him. Mack thought it strange that the stranger knew his name. But he was even more shocked when he saw that the winter forest ended, being replaced by a summer landscape. In front of Mack stood a beautiful house. He was frightened, but went inside. He was met by a woman who seemed familiar to him. The woman stated that she had waited a very long time to meet him. She also said that she had many names, but that Mack could call her what Nan called. The stranger turned out to be her son, and the girl's name is Sarayu. It was Papa who sent the letter. Now she wants Mack to understand how much she loves him. Sarayu collected his tears in a special vessel. Mack could not comprehend what was happening and went outside to recover. Jesus followed him and handed him that very letter. Mack can't believe this is happening to him in reality. Jesus said he could do anything in this place. Mack came again to Papa, who was making cookies. This was not at all how Mack imagined God. Papa said she could appear to people in different guises. Mack is especially dear to her, and she wants to heal him and restore his faith. Mack asked God why he had not kept his young daughter safe. Papa replied that Mack only felt his own pain without seeing the truth. Mack was not convinced. After all, God had once abandoned not only his child, but also his own, Jesus Christ. With tears in his eyes, Papa said that he never left his son, having walked that way with him to the end. Mack must regain his faith, or he will forget what he was born to do. At dinner, Papa questioned Mack about the children, with whom he had become less close after the tragedy. Later, Jesus showed Mack his artwork, a starry sky. Mack feels much more at ease with Jesus than he does with Papa. Jesus explained that Sarayu is a spirit, a guide. She helps people talk to God. Before going to bed, Mack found a Bible in the nightstand. As he fell asleep, he began to hover over the bed, and then returned to the ill-fated day when Missy was gone. He tried to save his daughter, but he could not. The next morning Papa made him a fancy breakfast, hinting that dreaming was very important. Papa also said that there is not a person on earth who is not dear to him. God does not punish people for disobedience, because sin is the worst punishment. Mack does not understand why there is so much evil and injustice in the world. He does not believe that Papa is good. God abandoned Missy when she needed him so much. Mack wants to leave here, but he meets Sarayu in the woods. She didn't stop him, only told him that they wanted to heal him, but he was not letting them do it. Sarayu asked Mack to help her in the garden before the feast tomorrow. He was intrigued, so he agreed. Right now the garden is full of weeds and looks like a thicket, but Sarayu intends to fix it. When Mack found a poisonous plant in the ground, Sarayu explained that poison is not always a bad thing. If you mix it with the nectar of another plant, you get a healing tincture. According to Sarayu, distinguishing good from evil is not as easy as it seems at first glance. God wanted to create a humanity that would live in peace and harmony, but it didn't work out the way he planned. By evening, the garden was in proper condition. As he was leaving, Mack noticed that Jesus was making something. He advised him to take a walk on the other side of the lake, where he could find something interesting. Mack decided to take his advice. At one point he heard the daughter calling him. Mack looked into the water and saw Kate. When he plunged his hand into the lake, it turned black. The bottom of the boat began to crack. In his head, Mack heard the voice of God saying that it wasn't him doing it. Mack was drowning himself, not accepting a helping hand. Jesus advises him not to think about the past and the pain. Mack saw Jesus walking straight toward him on the water. At some point the water was blue again and the boat was intact. This time Mack accepted a helping hand. Together they walked across the water to the shore. Jesus was not at all like the Bible says. Jesus showed Mack the way, telling him he had to walk until the path ended. Jesus promised to wait here. This is the path Mack must walk alone. When he hit a dead end, he was able to walk through the rock. Inside he met a woman in white robes. The stranger said she was Wisdom. She stated that Mack was here for trial. However, Mack would not be the defendant, but the judge. He has seen episodes from his father's childhood, who had a very difficult time. And the man who had caused Missy's death had been turned into a monster by his own father. Wisdom said that if you look for the root of evil, they will reach Adam. Mack believes that God is to blame for everything, because he created such a world. Wisdom went on to ask Mack to judge his own children, who sometimes do bad things too. With this example, Wisdom wanted to show that judging own children is not easy. That is why God faces difficult choices every time. Mack doesn't like being the judge. He can't choose which of his children should go to hell. Mack says he would rather take their place. Still, Mack does not understand how God can love Missy and subject her to such horror at the same time. Mack thinks this is punishment for him, but neither his wife nor his children deserve it. Wisdom said that God does not always interfere in people's lives on earth. What happened to Missy was the work of evil, and no one is immune to it. Only when all people turn to God will evil disappear. Suddenly outside, Mack sees Missy, who is having fun in the clearing with the other children. The daughter cannot hear or see him, but she knows the family loves her. Now Missy is forever in a place where evil does not exist. When he returned to Jesus, he hugged him. He was grateful for the opportunity to see Missy, at least briefly. Mack later told Papa that he was wrong. He didn't know about a lot of things, so he had no right to judge. Papa could turn misfortunes into incredible good, but that didn't mean he was putting all those misfortunes on people. Now Mack is ready to let God back into his heart and move on with his life. In the evening Sareu, Jesus and the Papa took Mack to a special place. Suddenly night fell. Mack saw before him the souls of God's children from all nations, peoples, and generations. Suddenly one of the spirits began to approach them. Mack recognized his father, who was sorry for everything he had done. The father and son forgave each other. When Mack woke up the next morning, God appeared to him in a completely different image. They came into the woods to walk together through the hardest part of the journey. Papa wants Mack to forgive the man whose fault it was that Missy was gone. This is the only way his journey will end in healing. Mack cannot do this, wishing that man to burn in hell. But God says that Mack must rid himself of his malice, for it is poisoning his life. Mack saw a ladybug on his arm. He still doesn't know how he can forgive someone who has done such a terrible evil. God told him to just say it out loud. Mack let the ladybug out of his hand, saying that he was ready to forgive, even though he would never stop being angry. When Mack was able to say goodbye to Missy with dignity, he found the peace of mind he had sorely lacked. Sareu poured out Mack's tears on the grave, and flowers and trees grew on the ground. Later, Papa said that Mack had a choice. He could stay with them and Missy or go back to his family. Papa also said that Missy lives in a world of perpetual patience and is willing to wait. Sooner or later they will be reunited. Mack was ready to go home because his family needs him. He knows that God, Jesus, and Sareu will always be there for him. The next moment Mack woke up near the shack. On his way home, however, he had an accident. The next moment he woke up in the hospital, Willie standing next to his bed. According to Willie, Mack never made it to the shack. Mack couldn't believe it, for he had spent the weekend there. Worried Nan and the children entered the room. The whole family was happy that Mack was alive. Now their life would begin with a clean slate. When Mack recovered, the family went on a picnic. They would never stop loving and remembering Missy, but they would go on with their lives for her. Please subscribe to the channel.